Good morning. Welcome to the Back to Basics Weight Loss Surgery channel. My name is Dana, MsDanaGerous, and I'm your Saturday blogger. Today I'm going to talk about how do I spell support. And before I get into this too far, I want to say that this is my opinion, and of course everything that we express is our opinion. I'm going to say some things that folks here may not agree with, and that's fine. In fact, I'd love to hear, perhaps differences of opinion here, because I believe diversity and expression of different ideas is a real power in this world. And, if it's done correctly, and positive, open dialogue is what makes things fantastic to me, and what you have to say may actually change my opinion, and so that's important in this. So how do I spell support? Well, first of all, I want to define the word support. First of all, I was thinking about this as in support in your weight loss journey. So when I looked up the word support, there were 9 nouns and 9 verbs and an adjective. And so I picked out a couple of parts that to me were most meaningful in the context that I meant that. So first of all is a noun, something that serves as a foundation, a prop, a brace, or a stay. Okay, yeah, I mean it in this way. A second noun, a person or thing that gives aid or assistance. Yeah, I mean it in this way. And a verb is to sustain a person, the mind, spirits, courage, etc., under trial or affliction, as in they supported him or her throughout the ordeal, throughout the journey. Yeah, I mean it in this context. So I came up with an acronym for support. S stands for significant others. So significant others in your journey. U is your clinical team. You are your. P squared, peers positively. O is for other tools. R is for realistic expectations. And T is for truth and time. So I'm going to talk about each one of these in a little more depth. First of all, before I do that, I want to say that if you've ever watched people mixing concrete, and I kind of am using this idea of a foundation throughout this. If you've ever watched people mixing concrete, not all concrete is created the same. It has a little bit a different mix based on the stress load that's expected, and based on the resources, the raw materials that are available around the time. So ideally, I think you want to have a mix of all these elements in your support system. However, you may find that you need to change the components a little bit, do a little bit of tweaking or modification based on the raw materials that are around you, and based on, over time, what's going with you. Unlike a building foundation, when, you go to build a foundation, you have one chance to pour it, and you don't really get to add to it. You can shore up it, if you think about a building, but the foundation is there kind of to stay as a permanent part. The great thing about our journey is that we have the ability to kind of recraft some of our foundation elements as we go. And so I want you to keep that in mind also. So the S, significant other or significant others. Okay, so usually when I say those words, people also always jump to their boyfriend, their husband, their girlfriend, their wife, their partner. I don't mean it necessarily in that way, though I think that your significant other, as far as the love in your life, can be a key support significant other in this process. But it also might be your best friend. It could be a sibling. It could be a girlfriend. It could be your parent, though, I actually wrote parent and then I scratched it out because sometimes what I think we need from parents, well, in this journey is not necessarily what we get for parents, but you have to decide. Here to me is the criteria for who you pick it's my criteria for who I would pick as a significant other in my weight loss support system. It needs to be someone who cares about you unconditionally, whether you were heavy or whether you're thin. It needs to be someone who will be honest with you in a caring, open way. And it needs to be someone who obviously honors your choices and lets you know that he will, ultimately, even if it's not their choice, they will be okay with the choices that you make. I think it's really valuable to have someone who you knew before your surgery or before you started your journey, and that obviously will continue to be with you, ideally after your journey. And, we can't predict the future, but, I think the idea is that someone who has been there and there's this thread of continuity in a relationship. That doesn't mean that the relationship won't change over time, because I think you change over time. And therefore, the nature of the relationship with people are going to change around you. Ideally, I think this should not be a weight loss surgery person. And primarily that's because I think you need a neutral party. And I also consider the weight loss surgery persons in another category, and that's the peers. I think there can be more than one significant other in your journey, but not too many, because this needs to be someone that you can tell your deep, dark fears, hopes, and dreams to. And, I think that if you have too many people there, then you need to do a little more digging deeper. I don't think there's very many people who you can talk to and be with at that level. So that's your significant others in your support system. You, and I took a little license here and I put it you are, but it's your clinical team. And I didn't use the word medical team because it's not just the doctors, but it's about perhaps the people that help your mind work also. I work in an area where I work with a lot of social workers, and we talk about the biopsychosocial model. Bio being your biology, your physical being, psycho meaning your head, and social meaning the things around you. And so actually, I think that even in this acronyms, I've kind of tried to take this approach. But so who's on your clinical team? Well, obviously your surgeon. Your surgeon is important, but I will tell you that my experience is that I did not get to interact with my surgeon on an ongoing, consistent, in-depth basis. I saw him before the surgery for a consult and another appointment. I saw him during surgery. I saw him a tiny bit after, but now that I'm 9 months out, he's not really a part of my clinical team right now. I mean, he could be if I needed him for complications or anything, or if I needed stuff. But I actually interact with another physician now who at my bariatrics program, who was not my was not my surgeon. So also on your clinical team, nurses or other medical people who are from your program, if you have a program. And I know not everybody has a full-blown program. It might just be the surgeon's office. I would encourage you to think about, if you're shopping though, think about a comprehensive program and not just a surgeon. The clinical team, I think, needs to include a nutritionist or a dietitian. Again, someone who you can interact with and ask questions with too when you are struggling, and not who you're just going to get this up front and then you go away and you never hear from them or talk to them again. Your clinical team might be a counselor or a therapist. And yes, I think most people have to go through screening in advance to, get a site clearance for surgery. And but for some people, you may need a counselor or a therapist on an ongoing basis through your journey, or you might not need one up front, but maybe you need later in your journey to get someone who is going to help you work out issues when you start struggling with them. The last part of the clinical team is your PCP and any other medical providers or providers that you see on an ongoing basis. So you need to have them involved in this. This is really important. They need to understand. They don't have to have a deep understanding of bariatrics. So when I talk about your surgeon, the nurses or medical people at your program, the nutritionist, your counselor, to me, all of those people need to understand bariatrics. They need to understand what the patient goes through physically and mentally. Your PCP and your other, your cardiologist and, anybody else that you see, I don't think they have to have a deep understanding of bariatrics, but they need to have a basic understanding. They need to be willing to learn more about bariatrics. And this is the real important to me. They need to be open and not condemning of you. And we hear all the time about people who go to their doctors and that the doctors make kind of disparaging comments about this choice for weight loss surgery. And perhaps they don't see it as a viable alternative for treatment. And if you have that kind of physician, I would seek other physicians. This is, me personally. You need to remember that you are the consumer and the purchaser of medical services, just like as if you were buying other things. I happen to work in the insurance industry, and I do interact with a lot of physicians. And there are a few of them that think, once they have MD after their name, that you no longer have the right to call them by their first name, even as a peer that works with them, or that you no longer have a right to, question their opinions. You know what? That's not true. And especially when you are going and paying for services, or your insurance company is paying for services, you have the ability, you have the right as a consumer, and actually the responsibility, I believe this as a responsibility as a consumer, to say, you know what, you treated me inappropriately. I don't appreciate that treatment. I am going to ask you to seek and get some more knowledge to help me. You have the right to change to other providers if you choose to. You have the right to complain. You have the right to complain to your insurance company that says this network provider treated me inappropriately. It's not satisfactory to have someone who behaves a certain way if they're being disparaging to you. If it's not disparaging, but they just don't know enough, you have the right to say, hey, could you research this and learn a little bit more in order to continue treating me? That's okay. Have that dialogue with them. Now, all that said, that doesn't mean that confrontation, if it becomes a confrontation, or that request, is easy, because it's not. Even when you get something, if you get something wrong at the restaurant, sometimes it's not easy to complain and say, this isn't what I ordered, send it back. And sometimes it's, for me, I will tell you, it gets easier with me as I've gotten older. But, when I was young, this wasn't so easy. But, it's okay to express yourself and do it appropriately and say your dissatisfaction. And so, please don't hesitate to do that, even in this medical world or insurance world. Okay, so I kind of got sidetracked. I'm sorry. So why do you need all this, folks, on your clinical team? Well, first of all, this is your life. This is your life. This is your physical health. It's the fact that you are going to be on this planet and live. We don't have the surgery to die. We have it to live. So you want to have people who are experts and understanding. We also want to realize that, medicine is a science, but it's kind of an art, and you kind of need the full array of the artisans to build this craft around you. So, think about when you're talking about your clinical needs, people that when you're going to go to them for your official visits and appointments or your treatment, think about any meetings or groups that they can assist with. Think about your calls when you have questions. Think about what happens in emergencies. There's a couple of other things that I feel like I need to say, and some people may be offended from, and I don't mean to be offensive. I just want you to consider this carefully. So the first is a word about going out of the country for support. And it's not about Mexico or Costa Rica or any of the places where I think the care is substandard, because I don't think that is true. A lot of physicians in other countries were trained the same places that American folks receive their training, or European folks receive their training. So it's not about the training and the quality at the time that the procedure happens. To me, it is about the ongoing, how are you going to get this clinical support? So what happens when you have to have checkups? What happens when you have a call and a question and it needs some medical kind of advice? Can those out-of-country providers give that to you? If they cannot, then I think you need to consider, how are you going to get it in country? And there are ways that you can do that in country. So can you talk to your PCP about it? Go in advance and talk with them and say, I'm thinking about getting this procedure out of country, but when I have questions and issues, I'm not holding you liable, of course, for surgery that happens somewhere else, but when I have questions and issues, are you going to be able to help answer those questions? Are you going to know enough about bariatrics in order to get them answered? You also may think about, there are programs that you can go to even if you didn't have surgery at that program. So here's the illustration I'll give you. I live in Arizona in the Phoenix metro area. There are several programs around at different facilities that are not associated with each other, but they have support groups that you can go and, support groups that are run by nutritionists or sometimes doctors, therapists, and many of those support groups, even though you didn't have surgery at that facility, you can go to the support group at the other facility for free. I've also heard sometimes in some places they charge you a nominal charge. So when you're talking about, again, interacting with a clinical person who has a detailed knowledge of bariatrics, think about, how are you going to get that close to you if possible, if you went out of country for your surgery. Okay. Gosh, I'm at 18 minutes, guys, and I'm going to stop this here, and we're going to have another installment that we talk about the other parts of your support system. So the peers positively, the truth, the realistic expectations, and the truth. So I hope this has given you some food for thought. If you have ideas about the S and the U, the support and the clinical team, your clinical team in the support system, then shout out, leave it in a comment or a virtual response. And I'll see you next Saturday on Back to Basics Weight Loss Surgery channel. Bye.